try, but I am not sure if I'm ready. If I don't, she'll be disappointed. I don't like to make promises that I can't keep. But I don't know if I can get across the emotions and the feelings that I need to convey for you to understand. But if I don't, that look of disappointment on her face, maybe I'll try. Maybe I'll take a risk. I guess it's worth a try. It's worth a shot. Many of you know who I am. I mean, I've been a carpenter in this city for years. Some of you don't know who I am at all. And here is the part where the risk comes into play. You see, my name is Joseph Ben Jacob. My wife's name is Mary. Wait a minute. You didn't cringe when I said my name. You didn't look away in disgust. Could it be that you don't know the stigma that my wife and I live under in this city? Could it be that you're actually willing to listen to my story without casting judgment at the start? Could it be that maybe she's right? Maybe she's right after all. Maybe people aren't so quick to jump to condemnation and judgment as I think they are. Tell me something. Are you willing to listen to my story today without judgment until I'm done? Are you willing to put aside presuppositions and hear the story for the sake of the story and wait to the end to come to your conclusions? If you are, dare I even hope? If you are, I promise that you are in for an incredible experience. Now, how can I say that? I've lived it. I can tell you very honestly that if you're willing to, you will come away with an idea, with a realization, with the astounding conclusion that God is much bigger than you think. But I'm not willing to risk it if you're not willing to lay the judgments aside until the end. So tell me now, do I continue or not? One voice out of many. All right, I will continue. I get to tell you the part of the story I love best. You see, I've known Mary since she was little. We both come from the family of David, and her father is a friend of my father, so her people know my people. I mean, honest. When I was apprenticing with my father in the carpentry shop, I saw Mary. I knew she was going to be my wife. But I'm a lot older than she is. I mean, I'm a lot older than she is. Some of you know what I mean. Not naming any names. So I had to wait. But I'm patient. I waited until she was 13. I did. I waited until she was 13, and then I approached my dad, and I said, "Hey, Dad, you know." So he went over and talked to her dad, and said, and a bride price was reached. It took me a year to save up that money. A year. But when I had the bride price in hand, Mary was 14, and she and I were betrothed. When we got betrothed, we got to spend an entire afternoon together with supervision. with supervision. The entire afternoon, we talked about our future. We talked about family. We talked about faith. Under the watchful eye of her mother. And I came away knowing that the woman I was going to marry was a woman of character and integrity and a strong faith. Nothing like her mom. Now, you need to understand our customs. You see, the betrothal meant she was my wife. But the marriage itself would not take place for an entire year. So really I had to wait 2 years. An entire year. And in that year, it gave her family time to teach her everything she needed to know about home and family and children. And it gave my family time to set aside a part of our house for us. She was so blessed to be able to come and live with my family. During that betrothal time, we were allowed to go for walks together. We could talk together. We could meet together to talk about our future. We could eat together. Always under supervision. There was no contact allowed. No physical, no kissing. Oh, no. No hugging. No. No holding of hands. No. One time, when she and I were walking, man, I was feeling particularly rebellious that day. I brushed her fingers with mine while we walked beside each other. She felt the touch. She looked up. Our eyes met. She blushed. But she smiled too. It was a good day. And I was captivated by this young lady. I was head over heels. And I swore right there and then I would do everything I could to protect her. Maybe that's why what happened next hurt so very much. We had been betrothed for 4 months. My dad was setting aside a part of the house. He was actually building an addition onto our home. We had plans. We had already started to make plans and started to set timing of when she was going to move in and when the ceremony was going to take place. We talked to the rabbi. Everything was good. And I went over to see Mary one day. She was acting very, very strangely. You see, you need to understand, Mary is this very responsible, a little bashful, a little shy, but very solid. Her head is not up in the clouds. Her feet are down on the ground, and she's a hard worker. And so, she was acting very, very strangely for her. She would sit down, and then she would stand up, and she would start pacing, and then she would sit down, and she'd be wringing her hands. She had this look on her face. It wasn't fear. It wasn't joy. It wasn't wonder. It wasn't awe. No, it was more than all of those things. It was all those tied up in one, but I don't know how to explain that. For 10 minutes, I sat and watched as she tried to sit or tried to stand and was pacing a trough in the floor. And finally, I got her to sit down, and I said, listen, whatever it is, Mary, just tell me. We're betrothed. Whatever it is, we will work through it. So she sat down, and she took this deep breath, and she said, Joseph, I had a visit from an angel, and my jaw hit the floor. This is not like my Mary. Her head is not filled with fancies and funny fantasies and flights. An angel. I thought she was joking, so I actually chuckled. Then I looked at her face. She wasn't joking. She said, an angel. His name is Gabriel. He met me right here, right where you are sitting right now. He stood in front of me. I was waiting for the punchline, but there was no punchline. But I looked on her face, and the wonder made me think that she really had had an encounter. And suddenly, my heart was going a mile a minute. You see, for 400 years, God has been silent with my nation. For 400 years, God has not spoken through a prophet. He's not spoken through dreams. He's not spoken through revelations. There has been silence. And suddenly, here is my Mary, my betrothed, telling me that God is speaking to her through an angelic, a divine encounter. And I was starting to get really excited. Maybe God had a message for Israel. Maybe God was going to reestablish David's kingdom. Maybe he was going to kick those dirty Romans right out of our country. Their stupid, pagan, pathetic gods and their rotten army. Anyway, I was getting really excited. I wanted to know more. And so I said, Mary, what did the angel tell you? And she pulled back. She pulled back from me almost in fear. And I said, Mary, tell me, what did the angel tell you? And she took this really slow, deep breath. She said, so softly I nearly didn't catch it. She said, Joseph, I'm pregnant. My world fell apart. It was like I'd been slapped. How could this happen? We had been so careful. We had done everything by the strictest of guidelines. I put up with her mother-in-law. I put up with that mother-in-law, my mother-in-law to be. Do you think I would have put up with that woman if I hadn't? Oh. Don't touch. Don't get too close. Oh, my goodness. How could this have happened? Mary must have seen the look on my face because she broke the contact rules. She reached over and she grabbed both my hands in hers and she said, Joseph, Gabriel said that I would become pregnant by the Spirit of God. I am to be the mother of the Messiah, the mother of God's Son. I cannot explain the battle that raged in me at that moment. On the one hand, part of me wanted to believe what she said. But God? Causing my wife to be pregnant? Not with mine, but I didn't know what to do. I was betrayed. I was disgusted. I was angry at God. How dare he? And here was Mary concocting this incredible story, trying to use our faith, my faith, to cover up her shame. If she had said that she had been violated, I'd be furious at the man who did it. But I wouldn't be able to get past it. If she told me there was another man, I'd be hurt. We could call off the marriage, but I would get over it. But to come up with a story like this, to try and use my faith, what I thought was her faith, I didn't know what to do. slapping her across the face. But I did not care at that moment. I just knew that if I gave vent to what I was feeling, I would regret it later. So I said, I've got to go. And I walked out and I left her there in tears. My mind was a jumble. The walk home was a fog. The days passed. A week went by. I don't remember. I don't remember if I ate. I don't remember if I slept. I don't remember working. I don't remember rising. I know I was snapping at my parents one minute and weeping in my mattress the next. I was swinging between despondency and anger and betrayal and disappointment, and I didn't know what to do. How could I marry her, knowing she had been unfaithful to me before we got married, and yet at the same time I would see her face before my eyes? How could I go through life without her? I didn't have a clue. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't talk to my parents because that would bring shame on her. I didn't know. At the end of a week, my father came up to me and very bluntly, he said, "Joseph, I don't know what it is that you were wrestling with. But obviously, whatever it is deeply personal and it hurts you a great deal. Either go and talk to the rabbi or snap out of it. We've got work to do and I can't use you like this. You're of no use to me like this at all." So I went to talk to the rabbi. I said, "Hey, Rabbi, I've got a friend." "Yeah, I lied to the rabbi." Go figure! Because do you know what would have happened to Mary if I had told him the truth? He would pull her out in the public square, expose her adultery, and stone her to death. And it would not matter, angel, God, divine encounter, it wouldn't matter the story she made. At that point in time, she would be stoned to death by God's own laws. And I couldn't have that happen. I couldn't let that happen. So I said, "Rabbi, look, my friend is in this situation. He does not want this to happen. What can he do to keep her safe?" The rabbi stopped and he thought and he said, "Divorce her quietly and send her away." My world fell apart. I left the rabbi thinking, this is the only option. And my mind kept replaying all the times that we had laughed together and talked together and walked together, and the dreams we had and the hopes we had. They were gone. Everything I had worked for, everything I had waited for was gone. I walked home. I saw the addition my father was still building on the house. I went in, I told him that I was sick. I went to bed. I don't remember if I had slept at all that week. I lay down and I fell asleep quickly. And I dreamed. Oh, my friends, let me tell you about my dream. In my dream, I was standing in the middle of this field. The field was filled with flowers and grass and life. The sun was so bright, there was no shadow on the ground. It seemed to come from everywhere. It was warm. It was comforting. And the birds, the smells, everything was so real. The peace in the midst of the turmoil of my last week was so overwhelming. The peace was like, I have no words. It just overwhelmed me. I felt like every burden I had been lifted. I'm standing in the middle of this field And I slowly turned to just take in the entire sight, and there in front of me was a man. Or I thought he was a man. So I approached him, and as I approached, I realized he was much taller than any man. He must have been more than 12 feet in height. He towered over me. He beckoned for me to come closer, and so I approached him until I had to strain to look up at his face. He was built like a soldier, muscular, strong, standing straight. He was dressed all in white. He had gold and silver armor, and he had a sword, a massive sword at his side, and yet his hands hung peacefully beside him. He looked down at me, and he said, "Joseph, son of David, I am Gabriel, and I stand in the very presence of God Almighty." And I have to admit, I drew back. The sound of that name, this is the same angel who had spoken to Mary, and I drew back almost horrified, and he held out a hand to me and he said, "Do not be afraid to take Mary as your wife. The child that is conceived within her is from the Spirit of God. She will give birth to a son, and you," and he pointed this big finger in my face, he said, "You will give him the name of Jesus, and he will save his people from their sins." And in that moment, I knew that Mary had spoken the truth. She hadn't been unfaithful. She was still the godly woman of character and integrity and honor that I had fallen in love with. And oh, was I the fool of fools to not believe her? And then it struck me, I was being asked to be a father to the Son of God. I had gone from the frying pan into the fire. I did not know how to respond to Mary, and now what was I to do with this child? How do you father the child of God? Suddenly I awoke. I was stunned, I was shocked, but I was clear-headed. And suddenly I knew what I had to do. I went running out of my room. My mother is standing there. "Joseph, are you in?" And I went past her in a blur. My father was outside. "Joseph!" I nearly knocked him off the ladder. I ran all the way to Mary's house. She was standing there in the garden. Wow. She looked up and she saw me, and there was this mixture of surprise and fear on her face, but then she tentatively smiled at me. I went running over. Her mother standing in the window. I went running over. I looked at her mother, and then I looked at Mary, and I took her face in my hands. "Take that, Mom." And I said, "God's Son will be named Jesus, and I will treat him as my very own." And she started to cry. And so I did what I hope any husband would do. First I looked at my mother-in-law. Then I brought her in for a big hug. We were married a week later. My parents disapproved, her parents disapproved, and I was going to protect her from all of the rumors and everything else that came along. But you know what? It's really hard to do when it comes from your own families. My mother treated Mary like dirt. My father would not even talk to her. Her parents shut the door in her face. And the people of our town, they turn away whenever Mary draws near. She's 14. And I know women in their 40s and 50s that didn't handle this situation with half the strength and grace and joy of my wife. No wonder God chose her. Because I don't know anyone who could have walked this hard road better than she has. In only a few weeks, my wife is expecting the birth of our child. Mine! son. God's son. Yesterday we got notification that Emperor Augustus wants to do a census of his entire empire. And every man is required to go to his town of birth to register. And my father is from Nazareth. But I was born in Bethlehem when he was apprenticing there. Road trip. I'm taking my wife and my son, and we are going away from our families, and hopefully that will give my family and her family time to learn to accept us. I have to admit, I worry about this trip. It'll be hard. Mary is so young, and she is so far along in this pregnancy. But we are expecting the birth of the Messiah. We are going to celebrate the birth of the Messiah. I told you you would have a perspective of a bigger God. My idea of God before this was very, very tiny. He was silent and he was out there somewhere. He was not involved in day-to-day activities. But I can tell you he's involved in day-to-day activities. He's very involved in my wife's day-to-day activities. He's very involved in my day-to-day activities now. And she's over here. She's kind of in my way. In a really great way. Now, I don't know if you believe my story or not. I hope you do. Don't get me wrong. But if you don't, it doesn't change a thing. My wife is still going to have a baby. We're still going to name him Jesus. He's still going to save his people from his sins. Because God said it, so it's going to happen. And what you believe about it doesn't change a thing. That actually makes me really happy. But I hope you do believe it. Because in a couple of weeks, we're going to be celebrating the birth of my son, God's son. And I firmly believe you'll be celebrating his birth too. Because he's going to save you from your sins. He's going to transform this world. He's going to make a way for man and God. He's going to take the stain away. My son. I am so blessed. It is an incredible burden that my wife carries. And I've added to that burden. And for that I will be forever sorry. But at the same time, her burden is the world's blessing. And I am so blessed to be his father. I will leave you with that because I've got to go and help my wife and my son get ready for a road trip. Bethlehem is a long ways off. And I really hope there's room in that hotel. It's a small town. Maybe I should have called ahead. Made a reservation. I was kind of stupid of me, but maybe. You ever can't tell? If nothing else, there's bound to be a stable.
That way.
Okay.